Charlamagne the God and Joe Biden. So if you have not heard, apparently Charlamagne is not happy with Joe Biden or Kamala Harris for that matter. But remember, Charlamagne the God did endorse Joe Biden. I want to take you back because he went through some things with Joe. I want to take you back a couple years ago when he first said that he did not understand the hype around Joe Biden. And I want to show you this because things did change. Let's get into it.
The Democratic presidential candidates blanketing South Carolina just 2 days away from that crucial primary, trying to appeal to the key demographic of Black voters who made up 60% of the vote in the 2016 Democratic primary.
The African American, Latino, Native American communities that have been hit the hardest by the war on drugs.
The African American community, the most loyal support that exists in the Democratic Party.
The next generation of African American doctors, nurses, and researchers need to be supported.
I believe that we are very far from racial justice in the United States of America.
Out front now, Charlamagne the God, host of the radio show The Breakfast Club. He's been interviewing the candidates on his show, also a South Carolina native, and you've been spending a lot of time down there. Okay, so recently when you and I spoke, you were talking about Mayor Pete, and you were saying, sure, he hadn't been showing the numbers yet in the Black community, but you felt he had the best agenda. You were pointing people out to his agenda.
Yeah, I do like the Douglas plan. That has since changed, though. I like the Greenwood initiative that Mayor Bloomberg is presenting as far as a Black agenda.
Okay, so
I still like the Douglas plan, though.
Okay, but then let's get to. I mean, obviously Bloomberg's not on the ballot there, but do you now think? I mean, because originally you had been saying you were moving towards Mayor Pete. Is that changing too?
I wasn't moving towards Mayor Pete. I never fully endorsed Mayor Pete. But I think Mayor Pete stands the goodest chance of anybody in South Carolina. I do.
Let me pause here for a second. See, this is what channels like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC will do sometimes. When it comes to the political races, they'll bring on someone who hosts more of like a Breakfast Club, more like a hip hop show. Like, I mean, they do have interviews. Don't get me wrong. They interview presidential candidates and things like that. But it's more, it's different. They'll bring on someone that hosts more like a hip hop like radio show and pick their brain about electoral politics. But they won't bring on people like Brianna Joy Gray, someone who's actually deep in electoral politics, has been a part of a campaign and actually talks about electoral politics. That's on purpose. Charlamagne the God actually said in this part, he said that Pete Buttigieg actually had a good chance in South Carolina. Both of us lived in South Carolina. Charlamagne was actually my best friend's neighbor when I was a senior at the University of South Carolina. I don't know what made Charlamagne the God think that, because I knew damn well there was no way that South Carolina was going to be a win for Pete. Not just because of conservatism, but also because of the LGBTQ community. They were not going to be feeling Pete because of that. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But they'll bring on people who don't cover electoral politics as much to give their opinion, to purposely mislead the people. No shade to Charlamagne, but to purposely mislead the people and make the people lean more towards the centrist or the center-right candidates instead of bringing on someone like Brianna Joy Gray, who's going to encourage the audience to support someone who's further to the left. Pay attention to that.
I think that this week, I think he spent too much time attacking Bernie, especially on the debate stage, as opposed to telling America and telling South Carolinians why they should go out there and vote for him. I think a lot of them on that stage did that, not just Mayor Pete, though.
So talk to me, though, about Bloomberg, because obviously he's come under immense criticism, right, for stop and frisk, and whether he intended that as a racist policy and his response to that. Why is it that you think he has the best agenda then for African Americans?
I mean, listen, all the criticism is deserving. I give him criticism. When it comes to things like the stop and frisk policy, there are people that are still being affected by that today. So, you always have to hold them accountable for that. But, I'm just going off the fact that I'm voting for my interests in 2020 and my interests of Black people. So when I look at the Greenwood initiative, he wants to create, 100,000 new Black-owned businesses, and he wants 1 million new Black homeowners, and he wants to put, $70 billion into the poorest and most disenfranchised neighborhoods in the country.
Yeah, after he had police officers beat, rough up, and frisk black kids. Now he wants to do these things. Michael Bloomberg is a Zionist. You see what I'm saying? You guys see what I was trying to tell you? This is who they bring on to tell you this kind of stuff. It's a mess.
To look at that as a black man and say, you know what, that would be good for our people. Now, do I trust that he's going to do it? I don't know, but I just like the actual initiative because I'm voting my interest, and that's it. And I'm not one of the black people that Mayor Bloomberg bought off, by the way. I'm just speaking from the fact.
Well, you're looking at the policy, and that's what you see.
It.
So, Congressman James Clyburn, of course, has been the most powerful endorsement in South Carolina Democratic politics for a long time. He gave an emotional endorsement of his longtime friend, Joe Biden. It wasn't a surprise to anybody that he did it, but he did it in a very, meaningful way. Here's part of what he said.
As I stand before you today, I am fearful for the future of this country. No one more committed to the fundamental principles that make this country what it is than my good friend, my late wife's great friend, Joe Biden.
I mean, gives you goosebumps to hear it. It's obviously very heartfelt. Mm-hmm. How much will that endorsement matter?
Oh, it's going to matter a lot in South Carolina. I love OG Clyburn. His wife is from my hometown, Moncks Corner, South Carolina. R.I.P. to Emily Clyburn. But I just don't understand the hype behind Joe Biden.
Pause here for a second. So you heard what Charlamagne said. He said, oh, yeah, I love Jim Clyburn. He's from my hometown. Okay, great. But Jim Clyburn ain't doing anything for black people in South Carolina. Jim Clyburn isn't doing anything. You just like him because he's from your town, right? So this is where he gets to the part where he said he doesn't understand the excitement around Joe Biden. So we're going back and we're going to bring it forward.
To quote Tupac, when I see Joe Biden, I'm like, yo, you really ain't shit without your homeboy. Because without Barack Obama, I don't see what all the hype is behind Joe Biden. Like, they talk about him being the most electable candidate and he's the only person that can beat Trump. How? He hasn't even proven he can beat Bernie Sanders in a primary yet. So what makes them think he could beat, Donald Trump? I know a lot of older voters in South Carolina going to probably vote for Joe Biden, but I would hope that, a lot of the younger voters in South Carolina, a lot of those new registered voters decide to turn out on Saturday as well and, maybe shake things up a little bit.
So,
okay. Now, that was years ago. That was the 2020 presidential election. And he said he didn't understand the excitement around Joe Biden. Now, he did actually have the opportunity to interview Joe Biden. And Joe Biden said to him in that infamous Breakfast Club interview, which I can't play on here because they have copyright. Sorry, it is what it is. He said, listen, Jack, if you got to figure out whether or not you're going to vote for me or Trump, you ain't black. Later on, Joe Biden issued an apology towards Charlamagne. Again, it's just, here it is, this man sitting there right in your face, basically telling you that if you don't vote for him, then you're not black. And you sit there, you think about all the things that Joe Biden did towards the black community during his career. The same guy who co-wrote the crime bills. He's going to tell you you're not black if you don't vote for him. And Charlamagne did not push back on him as much as he should have. I don't know if he was nervous or whatever. I don't know if he just wanted to keep access to Joe Biden. I don't know what it was. But it made me feel some kind of way that you would just sit there and let him say that to you and just know, just type of, you had this old dude, this old white dude tell you that you weren't black if you weren't going to vote for him. Now, after Joe Biden apologized, he did do a little bit of the podcast tour here. He went on to MSNBC. Listen to this.
Joining me now is Charlamagne the God of The Breakfast Club on Power 105.1. Charlamagne, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me, Joy. How are you?
I'm good. So, I don't know if you were able to hear Kareem. We had a little bit of an audio problem toward the end. But, I want to, first of all, congratulate you on the interview. The interview, people are talking about that last bit of it. That's the part that went viral. But the substance of the interview was really solid. You had very blunt questions for Vice President Biden. They were about substance. They were about what you want to see for the community. Your listeners, I'm sure, give you lots and lots of feedback about what it is that they want from this man. What are people telling you that they want him to do?
Just some really major policy commitments for the Black community, mainly in the form of economic justice, so we can, tip the scales on some of this wealth inequality in America. I do hear a lot of people say, we also want him to have a Black woman running mate, but not just any Black woman running mate, one that's going to actually, get in office and care that Black people benefit from her presence there. We need substance and significance over symbolism. And he's already committed to putting the Black woman on the Supreme Court. So I just want him and the Democratic Party to know that it's time to give back to the Black community in a very tangible way. But I can say that, the major point that I'm hearing about is just, economic justice, some form of economic justice.
Okay. So Charlamagne the God went on to endorse Joe Biden. And now Charlamagne the God is having regrets. In fact, he is saying that he feels burned. Charlamagne the God feels burned by Biden endorsement and says that Kamala Harris disappeared. Oh, let's get into this. Radio host Charlamagne the God said he regretted backing the Biden ticket in 2020. Politico reported on Tuesday, and he said he felt like Vice President Kamala Harris disappeared when they got to the White House. I'm sorry. It's kind of funny. Charlamagne, the host of The Breakfast Club, also told the outlet that he had no plans to endorse Biden and Harris in 2024 as he felt burned over his 2020 endorsement. Charlamagne is taking this personal. I've learned my lesson from doing that, he told Politico. Once they got in the White House, she kind of disappeared. When I give people my word, like, yo, man, I think we should be supporting Kamala Harris for vice president because she's going to hold it down. When we say those things and people don't see her holding it down, that causes issues. He also said he still receives backlash over his 2020 endorsement. Damn, you told us to vote for them? Do you know how many people say that to me all the time? He said. The radio host endorsed the ticket in 2020 because Biden chose Kamala Harris as his running mate. I'm voting for Kamala Harris. I'll tell you that in a heartbeat. I'm not necessarily voting for Joe Biden. I'm voting for Senator Kamala Harris, he said at that time. I believe she's a political change agent, exactly the leader this country needs to lead us into the future. If she's not, I'll be wrong, Charlamagne said in October 2020. So again, you see who they get political insight from? He thought that Kamala Harris was going to be a change agent. Kamala isn't changing anything but her shoes. Every time you turn around, you see Kamala's just walking. That's it. Just walking. He goes on to say, I'm just so tired of old white male leadership in politics. Charlamagne was joined by Harris for an interview in December 2021 that quickly got heated after the host asked who the real president is. I remember that. And there's Kamala there. I want to know who the real president of this country is. Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin? Charlamagne asked on his Comedy Central show, The God's Honest Truth. While he and Harris discussed Democratic Senator Joe Manchin's opposition to spending legislation being debated on Capitol Hill. The interview went off the rails as one of Harris' aides tried to step in and end it, but Harris answered the question. Come on, Charlamagne, she said. No, it's Joe Biden, she repeated as she tried to give his reasons for the question. And don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president. And it's Joe Biden. It's Joe Biden. And I'm vice president. And my name is Kamala Harris. The radio host also said he didn't expect Harris or Biden to join his show for any interviews in 2024. So you see, now he can come out and voice his real opinion. He can tell you how he really feels because he's already letting you know he doesn't expect them to join for 2024. He infamously interviewed the president in 2020, which ended up with Biden telling listeners, "You ain't black," if they were having trouble deciding between him and Donald Trump. So this is something that I've noticed before. It sucks for Charlamagne. It really does, just keeping it real. But this is something I've noticed before. Again, this is done on purpose. I think that some of the people in the left political space have been blackballed by some of the mainstream media because they're bringing on people like Charlamagne the God. Again, The Breakfast Club is not a political show. They're bringing on people like Charlamagne the God, or they'll bring on, what's his name? Moff Hoffa. RFK Jr. did an interview on Moff Hoffa's show. Again, that's more like a hip hop based channel. They'll bring on those people, but they won't bring on people who actually do political shows like Bree does, and she's worked with Bernie campaign, or anybody else actually in left independent media. They won't bring those people on, because when they have in the past, they're like, oh no, they're getting this message across to people. They'll bring on people like Charlamagne because they know Charlamagne's going to say what they want to hear in reference to the status quo. That's how it works, folks.